Okay, so I wanted to remake my old Intro to Mechs video, but shorter and simpler so that people could watch it in between matches or as they're just logging in for the first time. Okay, go. Atlas. It's really the only purely defensive mech in this game. It's good, but not great. Most people would say just to use the Prometheus or the Ragnarok instead. The Belial is a sniper. It is fast and agile and has twin Gauss rifles, but it's also very fragile and generally not to be used up close. This mech is useful if you can stay at distance and peek out behind cover, provide cover fire for your team. The Bowman is deadly effective in close range, but can also be somewhat tricky and inconsistent to use. Really, that's Warhammer missiles generally. They're extremely deadly, but inconsistent, and they can be tricky for some people. The Catapult is one of the easiest mechs to start with. It's a mobile missile platform with jump jets and target jammer. If you don't know what to pick and you're just kind of lost, this is a pretty good bet. You really can't go wrong with the Catapult. The Corvus has one very, very specific niche in objectives, but is absolutely useless everywhere else. Pass this by. The Cougar, despite being the mascot of this game, is somewhat underwhelming. Like the Atlas, it's okay, but most people would say just to pick something better, even in the light mech class. The Elemental is complete crap. Ignore this thing, if at all possible. It is a suit of power armor, and it doesn't even have the traits that make it unique and useful in the rest of Battletech. Just ignore it. The Hackman is your glass cannon class. It's the fastest mech in the game and also somewhat powerful for its size, but it has pretty much no armor. This mech takes a bit of skill to use. It may not be the best for your first pick, but it is really fun if you know what you're doing. The Hellbringer is pretty bad in this game. The Flamers don't have the same overheating effect that they do in the rest of Battletech, and the rest of the weapons are weak for a slow heavy mech. The Kid Fox can be exceptionally deadly in the right hands, but it takes an extraordinary amount of skill and patience to use. Definitely not recommended for a very first time mech pick. The Loki is a DLC mech, so you won't see it in every lobby, but it's good. It's pretty fast for heavy mech and has pretty good weapons for close range brawling. The Madcat's another pretty safe bet if you don't really know what to pick yet, but it can also be pretty meta, so it's a good mech to learn. It's a long range support, best used on open maps like River City and Stone Cold. The Mad Dog is a worse Loki, with the same weapon set and everything. Even if you're playing in a non-DLC lobby, I'd suggest you avoid this because it overheats really quickly and it doesn't have a special ability. The Owens has been a pretty underappreciated mech in this game. It's an ankle biter. It's used to run interference against groups of assault mechs. It takes skill, but if you know what you're doing, it can actually be quite effective. The Prometheus is widely considered the best mech in MechAssault, right alongside the Ragnarok. It has twin Gauss rifles for long range, it has twin Warhammers for close range, it can't be knocked over, it has tough armor. If there's any one mech in this game that's overpowered, it's this one. The Puma is a better variant of the Cougar, and while it still is limited pretty much to light mech matches, it can still stand out, and it does well as a kind of stealthy brawler, if you will. The Ragnarok, as said, is right alongside the Prometheus as the best mech in this game, although the Ragnarok fills more of a long-range role than the Prometheus does. Just as a note, this mech will only show up in the menu if you've already beaten the campaign all the way through. The Raven is another DLC mech, and unfortunately, despite its iconic status in Battletech, it just doesn't really have a role to fill in this game. It's, depending on how you look at it, either a really bad Owens or a really bad Corvus. Just don't use it. The Summoner is your classic jack of all trades. It's good at everything, but not particularly great at anything. Another one of those mechs that is underappreciated and not really used all that often, but it can be viable. The Thor is your up-close machine gun mech. It has 4 machine guns and target jammer, so it wants to really get into the enemy's face and kind of play a similar role to the Owens, although not really. It's another one of those underused mechs that can be useful, but is just not as good as other mechs in its class. The Timberwolf, despite having the same weapons as the Belial, doesn't really play like the Belial. It's more kind of heavy support / brawling. It's a bit confused, but it can be useful. The Uler is the worst mech in this game other than the Elemental. It has no redeeming qualities. Just don't pick it. You and your team will suffer horribly for it. The Uzil is a nimble PPC brawler mech. Even in heavy mech matches, this mech can really shine on maps like Rock Solid and Coliseum, where there's a lot of verticality to them. The Vulture is an iconic design that sadly has not seen much love in this game. It's okay. If you want to use it just because it's a Vulture, then sure, but basically every other missile mech is better than the Vulture is. Lastly, the Emir. And don't let its relation to Ragnarok fool you. This mech is way worse, for one very specific reason. This thing overheats constantly, and its weapons are temperamental to use. And that's it for my super short analysis of every single mech in this game. Have fun.